You ready? You're listening to the Real Pineapple Podcast Network. Hope you're having a great night, day, weekend, whenever you're checking this out. I've got a review for, I think, one of the most underrated comedies of all time, and it's personally one of my favorite comedies of all time, in The Cable Guy, which is written by Lou Holtz Jr. and directed by, that's crazy, that's his only screenwriting credit that I'm seeing here on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's directed by this little guy you might know named Ben Stiller, who I want to say the year prior did Reality Bites, which is crazy that you have, Reality Bites and, 2 years prior. You have Reality Bites and this movie. You direct both of them, and both films have aged shockingly well, especially when you look at how social media affects our daily life and everything. But this, of course, stars Jim Carrey. And so let's roll this back a little bit. Because when you think about Jim Carrey, you think about The Mask, you think about, Ace Ventura as far as the comedies. But I think people really do forget how big of a risk this was. Because Jim Carrey does Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. He does that in 94. And he does The Mask. And Dumb and Dumber, all in 94. Say what you will. That is one of the best years of any comedic actor ever, if not the best year. It's insane that he had all three of those films hit in the same year. So he has that in 94. Then he does Batman Forever. And I don't think I've actually reviewed Batman Forever. Batman Forever, I think, is actually better than people give it credit for. Give me the Schumacher cut. Give me that, 3 hours plus? Give me that Batman Forever. I'm horribly curious to see what that would look like. But does Batman Forever, mixed reaction, admittedly. And then he does Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls later that year. And Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls, I dig that movie. Are there some problematic elements? Absolutely. Is it still funny? Yeah. Multiple things can be true. So then that takes us to 96. So that really was a risk for him to take such a dark comedy in something like The Cable Guy. And let's be clear, this is a dark fucking comedy. I actually just showed this to my partner a couple days ago. She had never seen it, and she was just sitting there the whole time going, wow, this is way darker than I was expecting. And honestly, that's one of my favorite things about it. So just jumping in here, Matthew Broderick, who you know from a bunch of stuff, but Matthew Broderick, I was gonna make a joke about him running over a kid, but never mind. I'll just move past that. But Matthew Broderick plays Steven, and he is dating Leslie Mann's Robin, and I love Leslie Mann. Real quick before I dive too deep in here, gotta give Leslie Mann her roses, because she's just her flowers, roses, whatever. Between Blockers, between Knocked Up, between 40-Year-Old Virgin, between How to Be Single, she's an amazing comedic actress. And I know she's married to Apatow. I think a lot of people connect, her with him. But she's a great actress in her own right, and she really doesn't get nearly the credit that she deserves for being as great as she is. But you know how you have those people who pop up in a movie and you go, oh, nice. Like, you get excited that they're in it. She's definitely one of those actresses for me. And so to see her in this, and she gets I think she gets a good meaty role given where the story goes. I really enjoyed her in this. But Steven had asked Robin to marry him. She freaks out. Admittedly, I think a bit of an overreaction, but I also understand not wanting to live in that awkwardness, because as someone who's lived with roommates when shit has gone down and you have to live in that space and the the aura and just the vibe is off in the house or in the apartment or whatever. That sucks. So I get it from that perspective of her going, yeah, because you need to find your own place. So I do get it, but as a guy, I was like, well, like damn, like you have to move out, shit. But Steven goes ahead and finds his own place. And what do you do when you move out? Of course, you set up your cable and internet. So Steven goes ahead and calls the cable company, and we are introduced to Jim Carrey's cable guy. And just from jump, one thing that I appreciate so much about this movie is one of my biggest pet peeves about getting anything set up or worked on is the time frame. Um, the When I got my internet set up, I won't say through who because who knows, they could be a sponsor someday. But when they go ahead, fuck it, Charter. When Charter went ahead and set up internet at my partner and I's place, they gave us a time frame of, oh god, what was it? It was like between 9 and noon. I was like, okay, 9 and noon, totally fine. I originally was gonna go with Xfinity because they were running a promotion, and they went, oh, well, we would have someone there between 10 and 4. And I'm just like, that's almost a work shift. I'm not waiting that fucking long. And so I think they even say in the movie that your cable guy will be here between like 9 and 6. And I just immediately laughed because I thought, yeah, that's exactly how it is. And so, of course, Steven's in the shower, and, of course, Jim Carrey's cable guy shows up. And just from jump, he's immediately busting his balls, and really just the microaggression of Steven being like, well, dude, you're supposed to be here between this time. So the cable guy goes, oh, I'm late? And he goes, yeah. And he's like, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't have come at all. Jerk off! And he said it just like that. And credit to Matthew Broderick, because his facial expressions do a lot of the lifting in this movie. I mean, I think the script is great, but Broderick really sells the Steven character just off of his facial expressions. He does a great job. And so cable guy goes ahead and gets them all set up, and there's this there's this whole sequence where he's going to drill into the wall to set the cable up, and he makes it the most erotic, uncomfortable, like, talk to me, tell me where you like it, oh, you like it here, but like, he's doing this shit, and I'm just I'm just sitting there watching going, oh man, if I was Steven, I would be wanting to be anywhere but in that room with him. It's fucking perfect. And Carrey and Broderick play that scene in particular off each other brilliantly. And earlier in the film, Rick, Steven's best friend, who's played by Jack fucking Black. Jack Black looks amazing. I fucking love Jack Black. He's one of my dream interviews. If you told me top 10 dream interviews, he's easily top 10. I fucking love Jack Black. It's just crazy to see very young, not bearded Jack Black. It's such a trip in the best way. But he tells Steven, hey man, if you're getting your cable set up, I paid my cable guy $50, and he went ahead and gave me all the movie channels for free. And so Steven brings that up to the cable guy, and he goes on this whole tirade about how this should get you in prison. You'd be paying a fine of $5,000. Da 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 da. But he goes ahead and eventually, and he tells him, "I'm fucking with you." Goes ahead, hooks him up, and that right there is the worst mistake that Steven could have possibly made, because it leads to this insane, one-sided, most of the time, friendship between the cable guy and Steven. And that is really where the movie shines, is once the cable's installed, all bets are off. And it turns into basically guy, single, white, female. And it's brilliant, because Steven's going through a lot of changes. He's trying to go ahead and get this project done at work. He doesn't want to date because he's trying to work things out with Robin, but Robin is out there dating. And so he's in this just a state of flux in multiple aspects of his life. And ironically enough, one of the only stable things in his life is the unstable cable guy. He wants to go ahead and hang out with him. And the film does a great job of just ramping up the tension little by little. Cable guy starts to do these very subtle things that you're going, okay, that's weird. And I think we can all, relate to the fact that there are so many times that you're in a situation where you don't realize how bad the situation is until someone points it out to you from the outside who doesn't have any sort of bias. That's when you kind of go, oh shit, this was problematic, or oh my god, this was abusive, or what have you. And there's this point in particular where where the cable guy takes Steven to medieval times, which medieval times is still a thing, by the way. I wasn't aware it was a thing. I actually had to Google it because I was curious. Yeah, medieval times still a thing, and I'm gonna end up having to go to medieval times because that kind of seems awesome. But the big commentary that this movie is making is the impact of television. And you can sub in really anything. You can sub in social media, you can sub in television, you can sub in Fox News. There are you what fill in the blank. But what I actually appreciate a lot about this movie is that there's this flashback to the cable guy as a kid, and he quips, not even quips, but he tells his mom, like, I thought I was gonna have a little brother. And his mom, without missing a beat, goes, yeah, I know, your mom's trying to get you a little brother, that's why she's going to happy hour. And you just go, oh shit, that puts a ton of shit into context. The abandonment issues that the cable guy has, and his longing for any sort of true human emotional connection. And in the last kind of fight between Steven and the cable guy, I love where he doesn't quite break the fourth wall, but is directly talking to the audience when he says that you were never there for me, mom. It's a rare kind of glitch in the matrix with the cable guy persona that works so well and really hammers home the point of what the film is talking about. I didn't mention it, but there's a there's a great fake trial that's occurring within the movie. It's very much their version of the OJ trial, with these two childhood actors who were twins, twin brothers. One of them killed the other, and that whole bit is really funny to me because I definitely remember it's Sam and Stan Sweet, pardon me, who are played by the aforementioned Ben Stiller. Okay, so for those of you who are mid-20s, you probably don't remember the OJ trial. As someone who grew up in the 90s, the OJ trial was everywhere. Court TV was a thing because of the OJ trial, and very soon after was not a thing because of the OJ trial. But that was how so many people consume these shows like Snapped, and those sort of those sort of real life crime shows. It was through Court TV. And so when the OJ verdict came out, I still remember people at church that week talking about how, oh my god, did you watch the OJ verdict live? That was such a big deal. So the way that Stiller goes ahead and weaves that into his message, I thought was really well done. I just want to go ahead and jump through a couple things that I that I really enjoyed. Oh my gosh, why am I blanking? Jim Carrey's performance of "Don't You Want Somebody to Love," I think is actually one of my favorite musical sequences in a movie. It's very trippy, and Stiller does a great job filming it. It feels like a fever dream, in the same way that watching too much TV things can start to feel like a fever dream after a while. Things don't seem real. I love that sequence and what that leads to in particular. I realize this movie is over, it's over like 20 years old, but I don't really care. I don't want to spoil too much of this for people because that sequence and the aftermath of that sequence, I'll say in particular, is what just makes you go, oh man, this guy is not only problematic, this guy is fucking dangerous. And it gets really dark and really disturbing the more the film goes on. I don't think I'm spoiling anything by saying there's a point where Steven goes, I need to go ahead and cut this guy out of my life. So he looks him dead in the face and says, I don't want to be your friend. And from that moment on, Steven's life gets drastically worse by the scene. And that is something that that it's hilarious to watch, realizing that we're not Steven, but if you're living through that shit, oh my god. And Stiller does a really good job of weaving in some horror elements into the film as well, which you can definitely see showcased in something like Severance with Adam Scott. You can definitely see the horror influences in that show. Which, if you have not watched Severance, you need to watch Severance. I'm gonna have a review up for that here at some point before the end of the year because I fucking adore that show. But getting to my final thoughts here, this is one of those movies that I just look back on with such reverence, not just for its message, but in its execution. There are multiple things that I didn't bring up, again, because in case you haven't seen it, I know there are people who haven't, and it's something that I would definitely recommend to anyone. It's very much a me movie. That was actually the first thing my partner said after we finished it. She just looked at me and she went, oh, this is such a you movie. Meaning that as someone who really enjoys dark humor and social commentary, if you can blend those two for me, oh my god, then I'm in heaven if you can make that work. And Stiller does an excellent job directing this incredibly well-written script by Lou Holtz Jr. Why this is only 55% on Rotten Tomatoes makes no goddamn sense to me. It should be like an 85 at like minimum. This is a great double feature, by the way, with Death to Smoochie, which if you've not seen Death to Smoochie, you should watch Death to Smoochie. It's fucking awesome, and I'm going to review that at some point for sure, because I love that movie as well. But this is a solid A for me. I love this movie, and there's so much to break down on that, and there's so much to reflect on with the film. So it's on Netflix as of this recording, so if you have not seen The Cable Guy, take it's like 95 minutes. Take 95 minutes, watch this shit. It is well worth your time. But The Cable Guy, have you seen it? What did you think of it? Let us know in the comments. You can go ahead and follow us pretty much everywhere you listen to podcasts. SoundCloud, Apple, Google Podcasts, Podbean, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Amazon Music, TuneUp, and Samsung Podcasts at The Real Pineapple. Go ahead and shoot me an email. Let me know what you think of the show. If you have any questions for the show, any suggestions on reviews, go ahead and shoot them over to me. You can reach me at jhunter@therealpineapple.com. You can follow me on Letterboxd at Black Shazam. You can follow me on TikTok at jhunterrealpineapple, as well as on the Twitter at jhunterrealpineapple. You can find me on Blue Sky as well at jhunterrealpineapple. And you can find everywhere that the show is, including Facebook, at linktr.ee/jhunterrealpineapple. And don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube. Just go ahead and search The Real Pineapple, and we'll go ahead and show up there. Go ahead and subscribe, as I'm going to go ahead and... So, I think I mentioned it earlier, or I mentioned it. I definitely have mentioned it, but I was going to hop on Twitch. My friend who is working on the graphics, some stuff occurred, and so we're kind of going back and forth. But as we head into October, I will be streaming at some point in October. Probably going to start with streaming Alan Wake, but I will go ahead and keep y'all updated on that. I will be streaming in October. I promise that will be happening. But everyone, thank you so much for listening. Stay safe out there. Take care of each other. And don't forget, as always, to keep it real.